Some people have asked me, are there any similarities between English and Low Saxon? Of course there are. There are about 1500 years of history between them, but they used to be one and the same language, so naturally you're going to find many similarities. There's similar vocabulary, there's similar grammar, and there's similar pronunciation habits. Let's have a look. The first one is obvious. Everyone's going to look at the words. You're going to find thousands of words that are very similar, or maybe even very much the same still. If we look at the word for blood, which is blod, or the word for knee, which is knee, or the word for book, which is bog, you can clearly see a pattern there. Low Saxon has retained the original pronunciation, whereas English started to do funny things with the language. Next, let's have a look at the past participle. I have done. In Low Saxon, ik heb done. Ik heb seen. Ik heb heard. Of course, there's 1500 years of history between them. Naturally, that's caused them to, drift apart. But there are still some subtle similarities between them if you look at the pronunciation. There are some preferences there, both in Low Saxon and in Anglo-Saxon. What's in the name? So for instance, English is notorious around the world for the weak forms. That's where every vowel in a non-stressed syllable is reduced to a sound, a schwa. So the example sentence, what do you want to do tonight? Sounds very unnatural. Nobody says it that way. If you want to sound natural, you say, what do you want to do tonight? Very quickly, and everything that's not stressed, except for what, do, and night, is reduced to a schwa. So, what do you want to do tonight? There you go. Low Saxon does this too. Wat wil I doen vanavond? We don't say it that way, wat wil I doen vanavond? There's also a similarity in how we treat our R's. Many English varieties do not pronounce an R at the end of a syllable. So, my name is Martin, but Brits tend to pronounce it as Martin. But in my Low Saxon, people would say Matti. Not quite the same, but no R there. Another thing, we have a linking R. In RP English, it's considered quite posh if you say vanilla and chocolate. There's an R in there that shouldn't be in there. But at least my dialect does this extensively. So the wildest example I can think of is dat deed hij ook. He did that too. It just helps you move from one word to the next without having to make a glottal stop. One thing that we in the Netherlands, speaking Low Saxon, are often mocked for is the syllabic consonant. In Dutch we say that we swallow the final N. English does this too, and basically every Germanic language except Dutch. So who's the weird one in the family? So for instance, you only have to think of how Trump pronounces Putin. That Putin, that N, that's a syllabic consonant. And we use that to conjugate basically every verb that there is. So, weten, lopen, backen, riepen. Much like English, we also like to contract auxiliary verbs and the subject. English is known to reduce I am and you have to I'm and you've, but Low Saxon does this far more extensively. We can take basically any verb, contract them with the subject. Heb ik, have I, may become hek. Mag ik, may I, may become mag. Do you want, or will you, is wil I, may become wie, or why. Wat wil je doen vanavond? You hear, may become hear you, hoor I, hoor I. Much like English, Low Saxon sometimes expresses being with have. So for instance, I have been, in Dutch is ik ben geweest, or in German, ich bin gewesen. But in Low Saxon, ik heb was, I have been. And much like English, we also like to use do for emphasis, or to show that something is going on right now. Like for instance, what do you do? Wat doe I read. Ik doe lezen. You don't read. I do read. Ik doe lezen. Finally, you might know that some plurals in English don't get an S, which is the rule, isn't it? Like for instance, the word foot, if you want to make it plural, you don't say foots, you say feet. That's a leftover from the Saxon days. Low Saxon has this too. We do this quite extensively actually. We still have a distinction between masculine, feminine and neuter words. So every masculine noun with a dark sounding vowel, like oo, aw, o, gets an umlaut in the plural. So foot, feet, in Low Saxon is vod, vöde, quite similar. The word for mouse in English, in the plural, becomes mice. That's the same vowel change, and we have that too. Mus, in the plural, becomes muse, but house in English isn't huis, but in Low Saxon it is. Hus, huse. If you like this sort of thing, do give me a thumbs up, hit like and subscribe, and leave me a comment.